Burgh Steeler fans, welcome to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It is just barely after 9 p.m. We're a little bit more on time tonight. And where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan other than preparing for the postseason? I know. But with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how you doing tonight? I'm ready for it.
One last time we'll just breathe in that sweet smell of victory.
Yes.
It was especially nice for me. I was there in the stadium, got to breathe in that nice Acrisure Stadium air.
Yeah.
You had a little bit at the end where folks were just like bummed out because,
Yeah,
Joe Flacco finally, Flacco'd us again.
We're gonna get into those things, and actually, what we're going to talk about here, especially in the first half, we're going to talk about the game. We're going to recap the game. We're going to talk about our experiences, your experience. I want to know a little bit more, with me bringing a perspective of how things were watching the game at home. Actually, I wasn't at home. I was at one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman's house because I didn't get this game. Instead, I got the Ratbirds and the Bungles. So we're going to just kind of compare that. Look at that. We have a great topic tonight, and we're going to get to it. But my goodness, we have one last game that we can keep talking about. So we're going to talk about it. But then after we talk about the game, we're going to talk about the what-if game and how really you're never really going to win the what if game, and we're going to get into that more. Sometimes it's nice to think about what if, but at the same time, we'll get there. But first, we're going to talk about what did happen on the field. Rich, you were there. How was the atmosphere before the game started, and everything leading up to kickoff?
Different. It was a little different in the stadium.
In what way?
I just had this feeling going into the game, and I felt like a lot of the fans in the stadium did as well, that like this game was a done deal. We were going to beat Cleveland.
Did you? I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I heard about an 8-minute section of Ben Roethlisberger's podcast. What footballing is that? What I always mess up that. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That on his podcast, and he was just kind of, well, first of all, I was listening to it because he was talking about how, he wasn't critical of Kenny Pickett. But he was being honest that he didn't even expect Kenny Pickett to be what he was right now, and he kind of wanted to apologize for it. But it's not like he thought Kenny was going to be bad. Ben was just being very open and honest. And what's crazy is that open and honest when you're a player gets you in trouble. It's funny. Fans want honesty from coaches and players, but then when they say stuff where they're being honest, what do they say? Why in the world would you say that and make it a story? That's what got Ben in trouble on the radio show, was his honesty. Well, now he can be honest, and he was being honest about it. And he was saying about, Kenny Pickett was, doing things more than he thought he was going to be able to do. Right. But the other thing that he was saying, that's the reason I was listening. But what he was saying is he was talking the same thing. He's like, hey, at least it's the Browns at home. He was writing it off as a W. Ben Roethlisberger, not even a part of the team this year. Then he was in the stadium. I don't know. Did they show him at all while you were there?
No, they did not.
Yeah, the report was, I got it from one of the Pittsburgh beat reporters, reported that Roethlisberger was there. I saw it one time, and that was it. Maybe they were mistaken. So I cannot confirm that myself. But there was a report. Maybe someone else heard it too, and can let us know in the live chat that Ben Roethlisberger was at the game. But I'm like, if Ben Roethlisberger's there, it's over. He doesn't have to even be in uniform. The Browns can't beat the Steelers if they got Ben Roethlisberger, even in the stadium. So, yeah, I got the feeling that way too. That's how I was feeling going into it. And then the Steelers, they get the ball, they march it right down the field. And they punch it in, but they don't. Then the fumble occurs. Now I'm thinking that was coming towards you, right?
Yes, right in front of me.
That was coming right in front of you. There was no question about it being a fumble. There was no question about whether or not he crossed the goal line. The question was if he crossed the goal line 2 plays earlier for Najee Harris. And I said in the post-game show, a lot of people were like, why didn't Mike Tomlin challenge it? Well, he shouldn't have had to. The ref should have either one, got it right, or two, do what they've done all season when it's that close and call it a touchdown so it would be reviewed.
And let review. Exactly.
Yeah. So
the entire stadium went nuts on first down because the entire stadium thought he was in the end.
It was tough to tell on the camera view because of a shadow, but when they slowed it down, you could tell it was a shadow and he wasn't on the ground.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing, in my opinion. But people want to be like, oh, why did you rush up there and run a play when you could have taken your time to challenge? Did you really want to challenge and run the risk of losing a challenge and be a timeout in the first half? I don't like losing them, but I'd much rather lose that in the first half than the second half. But if Tomlin challenges that and doesn't get it, you know what people are going to say? Well, why bother? You're inside the 1 yard line and it's only second down. Just score on the next play or two. And it worked out as bad as possible. It was like a terrible mixture of the worst things that could happen.
Yeah, the one thing I wasn't happy about was, okay, so then the quarterback sneak didn't work. Honestly, that was one where it was like,
and they ran it so fast they had no time to look at the play.
Come on, Najee, run up there and push Kenny in. He did. He did.
Well, they ran it so fast you didn't even get the whole play on TV.
Also, on third down, it was like, again, you're inside the 1 yard line. Like, don't launch through the air and extend the ball. Just, pick somebody big and run behind him.
That's what they did on second down. It didn't work. So I don't know.
But I know you're saying that, but that was Kenny Pickett doing that on second down.
You're exactly right. I'm not going to argue with
that. Najee Harris doing that on second down. So.
Yeah, I get you. But
honestly, here's the other one that sometimes gets me. Okay. Honestly, if you wanted Kenny Pickett to hold the ball and do that there, honestly, you could have. And this is what I was actually hoping to see on second down. I would have gone fake that dive to Najee, had him launch in the air and everything on a good fake, and Kenny Pickett probably could have bootlegged and walked into the end zone without anybody standing around him.
Yeah. I would much rather run that play on second down because you run the bootleg on second down, and if they sniff it out, you just throw it away.
Just throw it away. Exactly. And
then you've got third down to live another day.
Yes.
Or you run it on third down if you know you're going to go for it on fourth down. Correct. But so that was just a weird thing. There's some people saying, oh, Najee Harris, fumble issue. You do realize that his only other fumble this year was on the Stanford band attempt play at the end of the Browns game in week 3. That got charged to him. That was his only other fumble in the year.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, Jaylen Warren, I don't know if they credited for him or not, but that other fumble that wasn't lost should have been on him. It wasn't the best pitch in the world, but he still should have brought that in. Right. And they were lucky to get that one back. So everyone's like, this is why it needs to be Jaylen Warren and not Najee Harris. Najee Harris fumbles. Well, so did Jaylen Warren. So I'm not holding that fumble. I mean, it frustrated me. Yep. I'm not holding it against Najee Harris long term. It still frustrates me for the game.
Oh,
right?
Yes. It was very frustrating for the game.
Yeah. So the thing was that then there was all this non-scoring early, for a lot of the for the first quarter. And then the Browns eventually scored. Hold on, I've got something weird going on with my computer here when I'm trying to. There we go. I mean, no one scored until the second quarter, and then the Browns score. Late, and I mean, it was over halfway done. It was only 6.5 minutes left in the quarter. But during that time when it was no score, and the Steelers just seemed like a different team offensively, Jeff said to me, "Man, this stadium feels dead." He's like, there's an eerie silence over this crowd. Did you get that feeling at all? Through the rest of the first quarter and through the first half of the second quarter?
Yes. And how do I say it? There was not cheering. There was a lot of complaining that was going on in the
like,
stand.
Come on. I mean,
yes. And people weren't liking it offensively. People weren't liking the play calls. Defensively, everybody saw I was seeing in the stadium what I was seeing in the stadium, and that was didn't matter what our combination was at middle linebacker, it wasn't working.
Yeah. Tomorrow morning is because there's been so much other content to get out because Coach Tomlin's press conference got bumped up a day where he did it on Monday. My other PFF article where I just report the scores. Now I had a run in with PFF today. I was really fed up with them with something they did. That'll come out in an article next week. I mean, they were either completely incompetent because they don't hold the same standards on their social media as they do on their actual website of how many snaps it takes to qualify to be a certain ranking at your position, or they intentionally did it to try to manipulate Steelers fans into liking PFF because their top players on offense were everyone's favorites. Because honestly, if you want to, this just tells you how unreliable PFF is. If they use their normal standards for snaps played, the number one offensive ranked player for the Steelers for the season is Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
And they made the standard higher through their social media stuff than what the standard is on their website, which is only 300 for quarterbacks. For the number of snaps played, it's like 225 for wide receivers, somewhere around there. And they're like, oh, everyone who played over 400 snaps. I'm like, well, that's not what your website keeps it as. But they did that because if they'd have put that out there for the Steelers and said that it was Mitch Trubisky, Steelers fans would have completely written them off. They're like, yeah, that's not right. But also they have Kenny Pickett's game against Baltimore being the best game by a Steelers quarterback in 5 seasons. And I'm like, we did pretty good there at the end of Baltimore, but that's not better than some of the stuff that I saw, in otherwise. So that's just what it is. But anyway, I'll get back to that. But with the PFS scores, Mark Robinson had the worst inside linebacker score of a game of any player for the Steelers all season, of any inside linebacker all season. It was bad. It was really bad. And it's exactly what I said. What people that were saying, Mark Robinson, oh, you had this weapon, you should have been playing him all season. I'm like, the Steelers used him against Baltimore, who wasn't expecting what the Steelers did. And that's why my X factor for the game against Cleveland, you probably didn't even see it because it didn't come out until you were in the stadium, was creativity in the run defense was my X factor, because I said, you can't come out and do the same thing against Baltimore, because guess what? Cleveland saw the tape. They see Mark Robinson on the field and they're going to switch it to a pass. It's what they're going to do. They're going to game plan around it.
And that was obvious. But
yeah.
when Deshaun Watson would come to the line, he would audible, and I would say, well, he just went to a pass play. Boom, went to a pass play.
Yeah, that's what they did. And it's not that I don't like Mark Robinson. I get frustrated with people who want to give him so much praise. Well, let's not go there. That he's not worthy of getting yet, and build him up to be something so great just because they went about him. It's a little frustrating.
Look.
It's what he is. He's a raw 7th round linebacker that's only played 1 year of the position in college. That's who he is.
He very raw. Okay. But I'll tell you what, that guy knows how to flow the football.
Yes, he does. He has so many upside things. But if you can only really the Steelers try to do this all the time. They take a player that's good at one thing or has a really big strength, and they put them in a situation to play to their strength. It's Mike Hilton. I mean, that's what the Steelers did for Mike Hilton.
Right.
They do that. That's their goal. That's what a good coaching staff should do. And the Steelers do it as much as they can. The problem is the other team knows what you want to try to do, and it's their job to try to get you to not be able to do it.
Now,
and it's an endless cycle.
if this isn't a what if, this is an actually if, because this is a looking forward if Mark Robinson spends some of this offseason and really works on what it takes to be a coverage person as an inside linebacker, that guy could be really, really good. If he can learn what he needs to in reading things,
that's the key right there.
Yeah,
it's reading things.
It's the read is what gets it. Okay, in my opinion, and if he could clean some of that up, that guy could possibly, that guy could be your opening day guy next year.
But it's going to take time.
He's got some work to do.
Yeah,
he's got some work.
And I mean, I've got to do a discussion with this today on the website with some people in the comments. They're like, well, you're only going to get better if you play. No, that's not true. If your problem is reading and diagnosing things, you're going to get better with film. You're going to get better with film. And then you've got to take that film and apply it on the practice field and actually implement it in a safe situation. Because who cares if you give up a touchdown in practice? I mean, you don't want to, but it's not going to lose you a football game. And then after that, then when you've shown, hey, what I've learned on film and what I've learned otherwise, and what I can now implement physically doing it rather than just mentally doing it, now it's ready to put them on the field. That doesn't necessarily happen right away. And just because someone was good in week 17 doesn't mean they would have been good in week 1. We're going to talk about that in those scenarios in the second half. So I really like Mark Robinson. I really like what he can be. But if he can't get the cerebral part of the NFL, mainly because he hasn't done it enough.
Yeah.
Just leading up to being in the NFL. It's not a knock on him. He just doesn't have the experience of playing the position yet. That's why he was drafted in the 7th round. And when he did, we couldn't find any information on him. Even Andrew Wilbar, who knew like the top 500 prospects, I don't know who he is. That's just why he was where he was. But man, if they could give him the time and the ability to develop that part of this game. But right now, when you're really good at one thing and really, really bad, if you have to diagnose, the first thing, once he put that film out on against Baltimore, you knew that was coming from the Browns. You knew it was. He had a rough game. Spillane had a rough game in coverage. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And okay, I didn't actually notice, but with Spillane playing 100% of the snaps, they had a couple times where they had 3 inside linebackers on the field, because I saw at least 2 snaps where Jack and Bush were lined up next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Bush only played 5 snaps, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And I saw 2 where he and Jack were lined up as the middle linebackers. So Spillane must still been in the game, and I
think they ran a few 3 linebacker at times.
Right. But I was really spending some time on defense, focusing in on that middle linebacker spot. So I was always looking middle of the line. And the 2 times I saw Miles Jack and Devin Bush next to each other. Guess what Deshaun Watson did?
What's that?
Audible to run, and they ran the ball.
Yeah. Audible to run, and you run. It's like you get your coverage guys out there. We're going to run. And the thing is, that's what Cleveland brings. Is they could really do either thing out of the same personnel packages. It's not one of those things that, oh, no, we've got a run package in. We need to run. We've got a pass package in. That's probably was their game plan. It's like, you know what? We're going to run. We're going to use these personnels where we have the option to do either thing. And if we see these people there that we can get in this matchup, whether it be players, whether it be positions, like if, we see that they have 3 inside linebackers, we're going to do this. We see that they're doing a 6-2, various different things of what the Steelers are doing. That's what you expect, especially a team with an offensive-minded head coach. Whether or not he's a good head coach or not is still out there. That's what you would expect from them.
Now, this all stemmed from me from you asking me kind of what I felt that atmosphere, because you said at times it was kind of quiet, and it was, because it was just like I felt the Steelers were being out-diagnosed in the first half at times, right? Man, did that change in the second half?
Yeah, well, it changed at the end of the first half when the Steelers put up 10 points. I mean that really did change things.
But really, it just, the Steelers weren't missing on anything defensively the second half of the game.
Yeah,
it just another one of those games where
they cleaned it up. Well, and did Mark Robinson even play in the second half? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I think he was in there some. But
if he wasn't, he wasn't being noticed either good or bad.
That was the thing. In the first half, you noticed everything Cleveland was doing, and it was exploiting the inside linebackers. So you were watching them constantly, right? Wasn't happening like that in the second half.
Yeah.
So my focus was shifting elsewhere, to which then, of course, part of it was shifting to, my gosh, Alex Highsmith had a pretty decent game on Sunday.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you look at the PFF scores, which keep acting weird on me. And he was like middle of the road for the defense.
Yeah.
That's because the defensive secondary dominated the top of this. Everyone except Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm going to ask you about Minkah. Did you think that Minkah, there was times he wasn't sticking his nose into plays as much as he had in the past because of might have been a little bit slower? I thought the ankle was affecting him, in my opinion.
No, there were times he was sticking his nose in there, but there were other times that...
I mean, he led the team at tackles, but yeah.
Yeah, but the Steelers also were set up a lot, especially in the second half. They were rotating a lot right at the snap. They were rotating to one deep. So Minkah was just rotating to deep center field when the Steelers had a lead. So he was really not nearly as involved in the second half as it seemed like he was in the first.
I just noticed several plays that I thought, you know what, Minkah would have played this a little bit different if I felt like he was himself, because he didn't quote unquote grade out well, but it's not like I really, those grades are what they are. But that was one of the bigger things with me, is I felt like Minkah Fitzpatrick in this game looked to me like TJ Watt looked 4 games ago.
I don't think I'd even take it that far. Minkah Fitzpatrick wasn't 100%, but he wasn't playing at 75 either. He was playing at, probably 92, 93%.
Yeah. But there were some plays on television where you could see that normally Minkah's flying in to do stuff, and it wasn't quite the same. Because there was that one Mark Robinson, because you didn't see it on the TV telecast, when he missed the sack.
Yes.
The announcers blamed him to say they basically said he misread that completely. He thought it was a run, flew up into the hole thinking it was run. It wasn't a run, so he just went after the quarterback, didn't make the play, and they threw it to the guy that he should have been covering, which was the running back. So I don't know if that was diagnosed the same way in stadium, but that's the way they broke it down on television. And I'm like, I can't disagree with what they're saying, but I can't confirm that it's exactly right. So
it kind of came across that way looking at it in the stadium.
So, but man, you could feel the energy come back in that stadium when the Steelers got on the scoreboard.
Oh yeah.
The 31. I mean, what was it? It was a third and 15.
Yeah.
The Pickens. And see, I got mad at myself because you're watching TV. I'm watching at Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman's.
Thank you.
And he's got Sunday Ticket, DirecTV, and I was checking it because was it Gunnar Olszewski that he went out was that in the first half that he went out? I can't remember. I was checking something because I was worried about an injury or something, and I scrolled down my Twitter. They haven't snapped the ball yet, and on my Twitter has the Pittsburgh Steelers touchdown George Pickens. And I'm like, what? And just like, huh? And then he snapped the ball, and I'm watching, and boom, there it is. So I actually, it tipped me off before I saw it on TV, which really frustrated me. But so I was just like, hey, get the field goal, get some points, and then come out with the ball in the second half. Then you get the interception to where you can get another field goal. Hey, Chris Boswell, perfect on all his kicks. Yep. Good way to end the regular season. And then that second half was just, I mean, the Steelers put up 10 more points in the third quarter, and you're like, all right, keep that 2-score lead. I mean, then the Browns came back, got the touchdown on the Cam Hayward thing. Man, the officiating was so bad all around. Yes. I mean, that should have been another sack for Cam, but they should have had one less because Ogunjobi, I mean, I don't get – it's not like he did it on purpose, but it's one of those things that just happens when you play. But I don't know how you missed that face mask. I still don't know how they don't review that one play of George Pickens at all that looked like there was a chance he could have made that catch. They missed the touchdown from Najee at the beginning of the game. They make that call on Cam, but what else is Cam supposed to do?
Hold on. The one for George Pickens where we thought he might have made that catch.
Uh-huh.
This is how that one came across in stadium because they kept showing the replay on the board.
Uh-huh.
In the stadium, were you thinking the Steelers might challenge that one?
A lot of people thought, no, it was inside 2 minutes.
It was inside 2 minutes. That's right.
They thought Mike Tomlin took the time out. Was to give them more time to actually challenge it.
Here was why. Okay. That play actually, when they were showing the slow-mo in the stadium, the 1 foot he was dragging, and I felt it came up before he caught the ball.
But I mean, it was so close you could at least stop it.
I think what happened there was it was a quick confirmation from New York. That's how it came across in this, people in the stadium. We were all feeling the same thing. We were like, some people were challenge it. We're like, it's inside of 2 minutes, inside of 2 minutes. And then there were a couple of us then when they were showing that up on the board, then we were like, you know what? New York probably hopped on it right away and came in and said, nope, that's the right call.
And it might have been the right call, maybe, but it just seemed like they didn't really give it the due diligence that it, and that didn't come across on the TV side of it either. But that's why so many people were upset about it. But the officiating was not good. The Cam Hayward sack, I mean, what else is he supposed to do? And like you say, especially when the Steelers were trying to tackle him in a way to not get roughing, and he would just break the tackles and run away. And even on that play, the guy's trying to escape. He's trying to escape.
Yes.
So he's trying to escape, and he makes sure he takes him to the ground. It's not like he flung him onto the ground like Kenny Pickett got flung by Baltimore. It's not like he landed on him hard.
No.
He just brought when I saw the flag, I said to Jeff, there is no way they're calling that roughing. But I knew that's what the call was going to be.
Yeah.
I just knew that's what it was going to be. I mean, and the thing is, yeah, you could say that led to the touchdown or whatever, but it did, but it was the points of what it was. Was it a little bit nervous then after such a bad call and then the touchdown? That then the game was only 6 points.
Yes, but
you could feel that in the stadium.
The response immediately from everybody was like, actually, it only took a couple plays. Honestly, it was because let's see, the Steelers went. I'm trying to remember. I think it was only 2 plays, and they picked up the first down, and it was like, okay, moving the ball already. We're up, We're out around the 40 or somewhere like that. And it's like, okay, we just need to move this down and at least get a field goal to move it back to 2 scores.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was the first pass. The first play was Connor Hayward's first pass that he caught because he caught all 3 passes on that last drive. He got 9 yards. Then Najee runs for 6.
Right.
Then they ended up calling a timeout because they let the play clock run too low. Then there was 1st and 10, no gain. And then 2nd and 10, incomplete. 3rd and 10, Pickens, 17 yards.
Which, you know what? If Pickens doesn't catch that ball, right? Because that was the one to the right sideline. There was going to be a flag on that play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like, I saw the ref, like he was reaching for it, and the flag never came. And I was like, I was going to complain and do the flag. And then I had turned and was like, did he catch that?
Because he caught it. Yeah. If he doesn't catch it, they flag it. Yeah.
I didn't think he caught the ball.
But they should throw the flag anyway. But sometimes, you know why you know what? The ref actually did him a favor by not throwing the flag. Do you know why? You throw the flag, even when he catches it, guess what you do? You stop the clock, and you have to do all that. And, it was better for the Steelers that didn't happen. Hey, I'm afraid I'm going to lose this. I really am. I got to bring it up here. John Myers. Thank you, John Myers. $9 into the tip jar. He says, taking Tom's lead, $1 per win. That's Tom Muir that does that in the post-game show. I always look forward to that. Knowing that it's a Steelers victory. And he says, thanks for all the content. Always enjoy the Scho Bros perspective. Let's stack another solid draft and free agency. I would say I can 100% agree with that, except for your order of operations, because the free agency comes first. I love to point that out to people because everyone wants to talk about what the Steelers need in the draft. I'm like, well, you could talk about it, but it could all change after free agency. It really could. So, but no, thank you, John. You're exactly right. Let's stack a good free agency, good solid draft. We'll get into the free agency stuff and everything probably starting even next week and some other stuff. We just wanted to wrap up a few other things from this game. Now, so the Steelers, you get the 3rd down conversion to Pickens. Then the next one, it's a 3rd and 8, and you get 27 yards to said the wrong name, Connor Hayward.
Yeah, now hold on. This is the one I'm going to say because I think this is where it was. It was the 2nd and 8 went incomplete to Deontay. That was over on the sideline. Okay,
yes. Mm-hmm.
The touchdown should have happened on that play.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Kenny missed it.
Why?
The touchdown should have happened on that play.
He had a wide open.
Steven Sims came
out
of the right slot.
I think they even pointed that out.
Ran a post corner, and the person that was guarding him had given outside leverage on that right side. And so as he runs the post corner, he's wide open. Why? Because the person was expecting safety help on the other side, but the safety had cheated up onto Freiermuth. All Kenny had to do is lay it out there nice and easy towards the AFC emblem in the end zone, and it was a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that was our chance to get a touchdown. There it was.
Well, it wasn't Freiermuth because he was already hurt on that play.
That's right. It was.
He was hurt
him.
And if you haven't heard yet, but you got to say it again, Coach Tomlin confirmed it in the press conference. Not torn, just sprained, no surgery. That is like the greatest news injury-wise that could have happened.
Yep.
It's going to be sore. He would have probably missed time, but it's not like it's going to affect next year. It's not like he's going to have to do surgery and rehab. Pratt Freiermuth should just be able to take some time off and then get to a normal off season, which is great.
Yep.
But yeah, then you had the nice one to Connor Hayward. Then you had, 2-yard run on 1st down, incomplete to Deontay Johnson on 2nd down again. And then you had Connor Hayward for 9. And then you had another run there. Then you had the pass to Connor Hayward that was incomplete. All his targets were on this last drive. Then you had the defensive pass interference on Pickens, against Pickens, which is what it was. They ran Derek Watt, and they got the 2-point conversion. So Deontay Johnson found the end zone, but it was for 2 and not 6. That was the last time the Steelers touched the ball.
Yep.
On offense. And there was, I'm trying to see exactly how much time was left. The first snap for Cleveland occurred with 4.5 minutes left.
Yes.
Now, so the Steelers were up 2 touchdowns at that point. They're up 2 touchdowns. Oh, I never took this off the screen. I just realized I was even on the screen. We've got to get to our break, but my question was this. In stadium, I don't know how you were feeling. That last Cleveland drive, I really should go back and watch it again. I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention to the Dolphins-Jets game. I mean, the game was on, but I had the Dolphins-Jets game on my phone, and I was trying to follow that. Was there a lot of that going on in the stadium?
No, believe it or not, after the Steelers scored the touch, everybody was saying that the stadium was empty and early after the Dolphins suggested. No, the stadium started to empty as soon as the Steelers scored the touchdown.
Yeah, they were up 2 scores.
Yeah, and that's when the stadium started to empty. There were a few folks around that were keeping an eye on that. A couple of us had us up live on our phones and we're trying to keep an eye on it.
No, Brooke Pryor of ESPN did tweet out during the games like, worst Wi-Fi experience I've ever had at Acrisure Stadium. She's like, I know it's because of everyone on their phone checking the Dolphins and Jets.
See, I didn't even bother with the Wi-Fi. I just stayed on the 5G cell signal, so I was all right there. But no, people started to just hop out of the stadium just because. I mean, gee whiz, it really was the first time all year, especially at a home game, where you were just like, this one's over.
This one's done.
And people started leaving.
Yeah. My question is this. I always say that I would rather deal with the Steelers' loss in the stadium surrounded by so many other Steelers fans than being at home alone on my couch. I get more frustrated and I'm not alone long because then I come in and do the post-game show and we all are in misery together. But I said that before I ever started doing the post-game show at BTSC. But with this one, it was a win, but there was the disappointment of not making the postseason.
Yeah.
Was that also the feeling in the stadium?
Yes.
Yeah.
People were just like, oh man, because it was like we did everything we could. You know, we went in on a 4-game, ended on a 4-game winning streak. Like it was there. Yep. But at the same time, but believe it or not, there were a lot of people that were like me, were like, it would have been nice, but I'm going to take a winning season in a year we were supposed to be absolutely terrible.
And we're going to talk about that and get into the what ifs because we're going to talk about after the game being done. That's what we're going to mainly do in the second half. So we're going to go ahead. We've run over a little bit here in the first half. We're going to take our break. So stick if you're here on YouTube or Facebook Live, we're not going anywhere. If you're on the audio, stick around after these messages. And we are back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Woo! So the Steelers, they're victorious, Week 18. Okay, that's the Steelers are undefeated in Week 18 of the regular season. Remember that? Wait, I'm wrong. I can't say that for sure because I know there was at least 1 year in. I got to go back and research this. There was at least 1 year in there where they did 2 buys. Oh, so there had to have been a Week 18. I'm thinking it was somewhere in the 80s. Maybe it was either late 80s or early 90s, where they did 2 buys in a season. So that means there would have been a Week 18. I got to go back and check those out and see how they've done the other ones. But since they've implemented the 17 games, the Steelers are undefeated in Week 18. It's really nice. One on the road, one at home. Both cases held their opponent to 14 points or less. There's a lot of stuff that the Steelers did here to finish out this season, and I brought it up in my By the Numbers article. Like the Steelers finished the last 7 games of the season of not giving up more than 17 points in a game. Seven straight games, not more than 17 points. And then those 7 games. Let's see some of the other stuff. I think it where what am I? Blah blah blah. Since the bye, the Steelers won over. No, since Week 8, even against the Eagles, their last 10 games, the Steelers won over 100 yards rushing as a team in 9 of them. That was something that turned around from early in the season where they barely could get to 100 in a couple games in there. So
I said about folks leaving the game early, so I had to put up there. Daniel J was sticking out. Daniel J, I didn't know you were there. I had to come down and see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I knew he was going to be there. That's part of the reason I almost went. I almost ended up at this game.
I don't know what you're talking about, the freezing part, Daniel J. That day in the state, it was gorgeous on Sunday.
He's from Texas. That's why
he's
not
time down
used to
there
that.
in San Antonio. You know,
I don't know that he'd been to a game that late in the season before. Daniel, he'll have to hook me up. Hit me up sometime to text me, Daniel, and see if that's the first time you went to such a late game.
I never even put my gloves on. That's how nice it was. Never put my gloves on.
That's nice.
I wore my nice new battery heated socks.
Mm-hmm.
Never turned them on.
Battery
it was
socks. Wow.
And I'll tell you, we were.
So you had your ice fishing gear, right?
Yeah, I did. That's what I was prepped for. I was like, because it turns out that the game Kyle and I went to in November was colder than the game we were there in January.
Well, I was at that game with you and Kyle.
Yeah. And remember how, it was pretty chilly.
It did. I wore a face covering. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But so the season finishes up. It's very interesting. You're going to get, like I like to call them, the poo-poo Steeler fans. The poo-poo Steeler fans that not, like I say, they're not poo-poo. They just like to poo-poo on things. They're like, oh, well, the Steelers, 9-8, is that the standard? Okay. Or the other thing of the Steelers still haven't won a playoff game in 6 seasons. You know what? That's true. You can't deny that. The Steelers have not won a playoff game in 6 seasons. But for those that say that, my question is this. Was this the year you expected them to? Was this the year after your Hall of Fame quarterback retired and you're starting over from scratch with a new quarterback? Is this the year you expected the Steelers to go to the postseason and make a run? Is that what you expected? Because those same people that were complaining about, oh, that's the standard, they haven't won in 6 years, were the same people that said this team's not going to win more than 5 games. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways, saying this team isn't going to be good enough at this point because of where they are, and then be upset that they didn't win a playoff game. Now, not everyone does it both ways. When I said the Steelers and I predicted them to be 11-6, I went full homer on that. And I admitted it, that I'm like, this is my full homer take. This is like the best I think the Steelers can do. And yet I still got roasted for being a hater that I only thought they were going to win 11 games when the schedule came out. There was a lot of things that went into it. Could a perfect storm had happened? Yes. I mean, my goodness, just think of, if we're going to play the what if game, we'll talk about TJ Watt. We're going to play the what if game here in just a second. But bottom line is, this was not the season, the beginning of the rebuild, or if you want to call it a reload, that you expected the Steelers to break that streak of not winning a playoff game. Now, you know what? My expectation is I want them to do it next year. Next year, I think, is a much more realistic expectation in the offseason going into next year now. Yep. So bottom line is, and people are like, oh, it was only 9-8. Oh, blah, blah, blah. All the schedule, all that. Well, the same people that complained, well, look, they didn't beat anybody down the stretch except for the Ravens who were missing their quarterback. But you know what? At the same time, those same people complain, oh, the Steelers play down to teams that are worse than them and lose to them all the time. They didn't. Since the bye, the Steelers beat every team that was, quote, had a, quote, similar record to the Steelers. They beat. Their 2 losses were to teams that are in the playoffs. So,
look, I also, sure, things always look different by the time you get to the end of the year. But do not forget that the Steelers, for the 2022 season, going into it, had the second toughest strength of schedule.
Yeah, going into it. Yeah,
going into it. Now, is
only
that
behind
really,
the Ravens?
Is that really how it played out?
Yeah,
but
no. Well, I mean, and you look at the schedule. We can play the what if game. What if the Steelers, some of those teams that they lost to early in the season, they actually played them at the end of the season? What if they would have played the Dolphins or the Jets or the Patriots towards the end of the season? You know what? We'll never know, because this is what we're going to learn with this what if game. We can talk about it. You can be convinced that this would have happened, but you know what? You can be convinced all you want, but you'll never be able to prove it because it just doesn't happen. So you can play the what if game all you want. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying don't expect to win. Don't expect to win. For example, here's one. What if they wouldn't have called that horse collar in that Miami game?
Right. Yep.
That's one. So what if? What if they didn't call that horse collar? Who's to say Miami on the next play doesn't throw for a touchdown? Who's to say maybe the game ends at the time the Steelers make the playoffs? Who's to say what would have happened? And it really stinks that they made that call because some people don't like the horse collar rule anyway. I do. As a former coach, I've seen people get injured by the way you drag them down from the back that way. I mean, my goodness, I'm trying to remember on the Steelers, someone that got hurt that way. And was never the same. But so people that want to say, oh, well, the horse collar, honestly, that wasn't a horse collar because the whole notion of penalties are put in there not to just be sticklers and see what you can find. It's to keep teams from getting an advantage. It's to keep a player from having to be forced into a disadvantage, or it's to keep people safe. Like they call that penalty on Cam Hayward roughing the passer. Was that really helping keep the quarterback safe? No, because he didn't do anything that was egregious. That's why. So that horse collar penalty, he didn't actually pull him down. He grabbed a hold of the jersey on the back, but he didn't pull him backwards. That's what makes it a horse collar penalty. That's what makes it dangerous, and that's not what he did. It shouldn't have been called. But and you can say that until you're blue in the face. You still never know how that game would have turned out. The Jets were terrible. The Jets were terrible. To me, the biggest hope they would have had was to tie that game because both teams were terrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so you can talk about those kinds of things. Okay. So let's say you get that what if. What if the Steelers make the playoffs? Already saw it earlier the last time. Might have even been Daniel J. If the Steelers would have made the playoffs this year, they would have broke that streak. You could think that the Steelers were going to win the playoff game. If only they would have gotten in, they would have made some noise. And although I agree with that, I don't know if they would have actually been victorious. If they had to go to Buffalo, honestly, if I were to tell you my honest opinion right now, if the Steelers played the Buffalo Bills 3 times, I would say they would beat them 1 out of 3. Well, just right now, where the rosters are and everything going on.
Yeah.
The question is, that game they would have, if they would have made it and gone to Buffalo, would that one game be the one that they won, or would it be one of the two that they would have lost? That's how it works in the NFL,
right?
So I wouldn't say that the Steelers couldn't beat them. The question is, was it just going to be that day? So the what if of make the playoffs? You will never know how it would have worked out for the Steelers. They could have gone on a Super Bowl run. They could have lost badly in the first round, and it could have been anywhere in between. You can play that out in your mind any way you want it to be, because bottom line is we'll never be able to know, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep. Right. You don't know unless you were actually to do it.
Yeah.
Be able to go back and do it.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. And now, so I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. Here's your what if scenario. I'm going to give it to you.
Yep.
Pick which game of what if the Steelers would have done this to win this game this season. Which game, if I were to say, what if the Steelers won one more game? Which game would you look at?
I'd be saying, what if Mitch Trubisky doesn't throw 3 interceptions against Baltimore and Pittsburgh?
Or they block Calais Campbell and Chris Boswell hits that field goal.
Yes, exactly.
It's
like,
yeah.
That's the thing. In some of these, you could pick so many what ifs, and it was just,
What if Kenny Pickett doesn't have that play to Pat Frere, throws it so high to Pat Freiermuth he can't get his hands on it when he was trying to throw it away, and the Jets don't intercept that ball?
Yes. I mean, just
what if the defense can make the stop at the end of New England and give the offense one more chance? What if the Steelers intercept one of those passes in the Dolphins? You could drive yourself crazy with what if, but every single one of those, it could have turned out worse. Okay.
Which is right, which is where the one that comes up that I told you before.
Yep. And this is the next one I had. I'm gonna ask you.
You ask it.
What if, Rich? What if Kenny Pickett started week 1?
Yeah. And everybody could say if Kenny Pickett starts week 1, then maybe the Steelers are good and make the playoffs. Here is my nightmare scenario that you do that. Kenny Pickett starts week 1. Week 2 game, Kenny Pickett gets sacked and breaks his collarbone and is out for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Then where are the Steelers in terms of Kenny Pickett's development?
Yeah.
It's like, sure, maybe your thing happens. Maybe it turns out worse. It's like,
well, that's why I think it would turn out worse. What if Kenny Pickett and everything else going into a short week, going into Cleveland, ends up getting killed by Myles Garrett, and that's where an injury happens?
Yeah,
You just don't know, because people are like, oh, if Kenny Pickett would have started from the beginning, they would have won at least one more of those games early. Maybe. Here's my question: if Kenny Pickett's making his first ever NFL start, do you think he plays a completely clean game against the Bengals? Like what it took in order for the Steelers to win that game when they got 5 takeaways and no turnovers? I don't know that you can chalk that up for sure as a win.
Right. So it's that's why I hate the what. Look,
yeah, and that's
because it's very similar. I can remember having this conversation with some resident assistants when you're working for me at William and Mary. They just got into playing this. Well, what about if this happens? What about if this happens? What about if this happens? And this was all around like incidents with drugs and alcohol. And finally I had to stop and say, look, guys, you can sit here and ask me, and I could go through 1,000 scenarios of what if. And the first time you have to deal with one of these situations, it's not going to match one of those 1,000 things.
Yeah.
So playing the what if game is pointless.
Yeah.
I said, that's why I'm training you. What I'm training you to do is to be able to do this, for me to trust you to handle things given any way this comes about.
Yeah. Hey, here's one I forgot. Sherry Richards says, Gunner dropping that punt and giving the Patriots a touchdown.
There you go.
I forgot about that.
I did
too. Because it was so long ago that's another one. Thanks for remembering that. But here, I'm going to have an article that it's supposed to be out tomorrow afternoon, unless there's a bunch of news about the Steelers not having the rookie wall. The rookies didn't hit a wall. If Kenny Pickett starts week 1, who's to say he doesn't start to fall off at the end of the season because of the rigors of a full NFL season for a rookie? And instead, I mean, my goodness, I still say if the Steelers made the playoffs, I still feel that he was playing and getting better.
Yeah.
So that's a positive thing. So we those are all things that we don't know. We could say, and I know the big ones, people want to say if Kenny Pickett started from the beginning. And I'm not saying that it was the right call. I'm not saying that it wasn't the right call. Because just remember, Kenny Pickett did not play a snap in the NFL regular season until October. So he missed the month of January. So that saved him a month there.
All I'm saying is this. In terms of Kenny Pickett, I am happy with how it went.
Yeah.
I am good with Kenny Pickett. I think now the Steelers have what they need to push into next year with Kenny Pickett as QB1. Okay.
Yep.
Was it perfect? I don't know. It's the ever famous, but it is what it is, and I'm okay with what it is.
And yes, the Steelers didn't make the playoffs, and like I said, this could be a silver lining or whatever. But even with all the other what-if scenarios of what could have been from this past season, and this is why we do this show now, because we're talking about what could have been in this past season. I like where they are right now. You change one thing, and you think they might have been better, and they might not be where they are right now. This is what I like. And I was actually going to mention this person here in a little bit. Jeffrey Benedict. This is the what-if game you play. What if Kenny Pickett and George Pickens had a whole season in another training camp together? To me, maybe I'm reading this the wrong way. I'm reading this as saying, rather than ask about what if of what could have happened, why don't you talk about what if of what's going to happen? Instead of what if, what could be? What could be? That's what you need to focus on right now, Steelers fans. I know the season's just finished. You talk about the what ifs. And like I said, you're never going to win. You're never going to win. You can't go back and win those games. It's just kind of like when the Steelers got trounced by the Bills. My stat geek that week is the Steelers can't go back and unsuck against the Bills. You can't go back. You can't go back and win that game. You can't go back and lose that game. It's just what it is now. And you can, I'm not saying don't think about it. I'm not saying don't ask the questions, but to think that you have a definitive answer. Okay. Jeffrey says that I get it. I wanted to bring up Jeffrey. Jeffrey had a fantastic cutting room floor today. If you don't listen to our audio stuff because you're here on YouTube or Facebook, you've got to look up BTSC. Well, let's see. What is it? Just type in Behind the Steel Curtain anywhere you do podcasts. Jeffrey's cutting room floor this morning. He talked about, it was great because he was basically running down the Browns, but he was talking about the direction of the Steelers and the direction of the Browns and all the stuff that the Browns did and how it didn't work and all the stuff that the Steelers did and how the Steelers are better off where the Browns are right now. And they have so much more going for them going forward where the Browns are really strapped for other things as well. Mm-hmm. It was a great show. And one of the best reasons that was that was a great show was that Jeffrey said this line.
You play to win the game.
Jeffrey said that one. So it was great to hear him say that, but it was a really good show. So make sure you go back and check that out. But Rich, I got a new sound. That I can't wait to use because I used it on the preview. You know what it is? It's the great Rich Eisen.
You are, with all due respect, dumb.
So I'm ready to be able to use that at times this year.
I need that one for when you say stuff. So
yeah. So you can bust that out on me all the time too. So our point is these what ifs. You know what? It's what. So many times I look back at what ifs and like, what if I wouldn't have done this? What if I wouldn't have done that? What if I wouldn't have done that? And something I always find myself doing is that I wouldn't be where I am right now and got to, I think, if I would have made a different decision to do this in high school, I may not be where I am now and have my kids. And that's heartbreaking. I could give another example, but it's a little bit could be too personal for people. Okay. I'm not going to go there.
You said this one, so I'll tell you this one. It's a little personal for me, but you'll get it and this was just within the last weekend talking I was talking to Mom and Dad,
mm-hmm.
and Dad brought up and he said, you know what? He said the one mistake he said I may have made in life was having you work for the Board of Education in the summer times because you wouldn't have had that accident and messed up your back and all this that and everything else. And I said, Dad, no. And he's like, what? I said, right now, I wouldn't have it any other way. He's like, why not? Yeah. I said, because if I don't have that accident, there's a good chance I never meet my wife.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of things that would have been different in my life had that one incident not happened. And I'm okay with where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easy for me to say, what if when my high school coach just kind of surprised me in the hallway, say, I got to do it right now. You play, are you going to college to play football? And I gave him the answer, no. And it's not that I didn't want to play football in college. It's just the way I interpreted his question was I choosing a college based on who was going to offer me what for football? And I wasn't going to pigeonhole myself like that. He went and told every school that asked about me, he's not playing football. So what would have happened if I would have played college football? How would that have changed my life? I wouldn't be able to, chances are I would not be sitting here doing this with my brother and with these great Steeler fans on a Tuesday night with my fantastic wife and my 3 wonderful kids and everything. So that's the moral of the story of the what if game. No, as many positives as you can see, you could always have that thing that's taken away.
Because I know what you'd have been doing.
Yeah.
You know that? I know what you'd have been doing.
What have I been doing?
Hmm?
Okay.
Oh, you would have been, protecting Ben's blind side.
No, honestly, I ran this scenario in my head. I'm like, no, man, what if I went on and I got a really good coach and got in a great regimen and blah, blah, blah. The Steelers may not have ever drafted Ben Roethlisberger. I could have changed the entire face of the NFL, which is a complete joke. I hope you guys understand that. We've got to get to our question. We are way over tonight, but this is the question. One thing that we now know from the season, Rich, is we now know the Steelers' opponents, all of them for next year, both home and away. We know what they are. I sent you a graphic look, the Pens one. I sent you a graphic just to make sure that we had them. I'm going to read this real quick. Home games, the three AFC teams. Remember, there's 9 of them. Love having the 9 home games.
3 AFC North teams.
Yeah, 3 AFC North teams. Cardinals, Packers, Jaguars, Patriots, 49ers, and Titans are at Pittsburgh. The Steelers go on the road to the 3 AFC North teams. They go to Houston, Indy, Vegas, LA Rams, and Seattle Seahawks. So that's their schedule next year. Okay. I know other teams are doing playoffs. We don't know what's going on. Playoffs. Playoffs. Yeah, why am I saying? Come on, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for it. Okay.
Playoffs?
Yeah, there it is.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yeah. The other teams are doing that. I'll be honest with you. We could sit there and talk what if, and you could argue now power rankings. I mean, I'd like to argue that the Steelers are in the second tier right now with the AFC. To me, you've got that top 3 of, Bills, Chiefs, Bengals. It's just my opinion. Yeah. And then you got that next group. I think the Steelers, right now they're better than the Dolphins, even though they lost to them earlier in the season. The way the Dolphins are playing now, I put the Steelers in there with that right there with that like one of the next teams, whether it's Steelers, Jaguars seem like they're up there. I don't know about the Chargers. I haven't really watched them this year, I have to admit. So I'll get to really watch them. And you could probably go ahead and throw the Ravens in there, even though they're struggling now, but they're dealing with a lot of injuries. So to me, even though they didn't make the playoffs, I still put the Steelers above some of those teams. But the whole reason I brought up the opponents, here's our question. And it's not going to be trying to guess the schedule. We'll do that another time. The 17 opponents. We'll ask this question a bunch, way too early. And people that do it in the live chat, remember, don't put your answer in yet. And you're only allowed to give me the numbers. Rich, right off the bat, give me the Steelers record next year for 2023.
Oh, that's a little different route I thought you were going to do when you sent me this.
Yeah. Remember, don't put your answer in there yet, those of you listening. Okay. I mean, you can kind of look at the opponents. You can just kind of think in general. I got my answer ready.
17 games.
Yep.
Steelers 12-5.
I was tempted to go 12-5. I'm like, I feel confident in 11-6. I would put a wager on the Steelers winning 11 games next year.
Well, what's
I think
funny
they could.
That was me backing it off one. I'm actually sitting here staring at the thing you sent me and was kind of counting my way through. And I was like, finally, at first I was at like 13-4, and I was like, man, and that's might be even shortchanged them a little bit. I was like, nah, but they'll lose a game or two that I'm not expecting on here. So that's why I went with 12-5.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I looked at it. I'm like, wow, even just saying they did what they did last year and split the AFC North, then there's 3 losses there. I could see them, a couple other tough ones there, but I could see them really winning that many games. And that's assuming they split everything with the North. Here, we got everyone ready. Okay. They were ready to go. They waited and they came out. We did not have one single person jump the gun, Rich.
Good.
Not
good.
One.
Some people tried to time it up and going just a hair early, but
called loyal listeners. They know what's coming. Okay. Kathy Ford, 11-6. Thomas Riley, 12-5. BF Bud, 11-6. Steeler Chick 46, 12-5 as well. Craig L. Lawson, 11-6. Harvey Stone, he's like 17-0. You know what? I've got no problem with that. You go the Jeff Hartman route.
I like how he said it. Until they prove they can't.
Until they prove they can't. Frosty the Bear, 12-5. Reginald, 11-6. Reginald Rivers. John Funker, 10-7. Jerry Cherry, 12-5. State of the Steelers, 12-5. Demetrios, 11-6. Mr. Woodside, 11-6. And he threw in an explanation, but I'm not going to say it because I said I wasn't. Just Me says 11-6. Mark Tobin says 10-7. Patricia Castaneda says 11-6. NSMC 99. I didn't mess that up, right? Okay. 11-6. Jennifer, 12-5. This is a new one I haven't seen. Lake Effect Snows 1. Did you remember seeing that one yet? They got 12 and they got 12 wins. They're not even saying 12-5. For all I know, they're saying 12-0-5.
That's
All
right.
4-1. No One You Know's got 11-6. Kyle Smith's got 11-6. Tyler W's got 10-7. He says a reason, but I said I'm not going to read those. Jeremiah Yoder says 12-5. Sherry Richards says 12-5. Nobody so far, if any of these others pop up here, no one has the Steelers with less than 10 wins.
Correct.
Everyone expects the Steelers to get one more win next year. See, there's Joseph Donovan, 11-6. And that's where you should be right now. And do you know why we feel that way?
Because we ended our season on a roll.
On a high note. Exactly.
Not just a high note.
Yeah. You won 4 in a row.
Right.
You 4 in a row.
7-2 after the bye. Just
6 out of the last 7. 7 out of the last 9. Boom. It's what it is. And like you say, there wasn't a loss in there to a team that you think, oh man, they should have beat them based on their record going into the game. You can look back at the Ravens game and say they should have won that game based on the situation, but that's not what it was. Oh, that Thomas Riley, yeah, he's got to put his 8-1 of what he had last year. Jeffrey had to turn it around and ruin it. He says 3-14, but of course,
always the pessimist, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
always the pessimist.
But he kind of reminds me of someone else who does or tries to do film breakdowns, not like Jeffrey does. Carson Carswell, 11-6. They say Jeffrey's kicked out. So just some the people are picking on Jeffrey.
Yeah.
So I like that there's excitement going into the next year, and the Steelers haven't even had free agency in the draft yet. I mean, was there this excitement when the Steelers finished their season last year? No. Look,
I'm going to go right along that line real quick, and then we can wrap it up here. Okay. Did anybody feel that good? The Steelers in 2020 or whatever went 11-0 and then limped their way into the playoffs, and then lost the first round of the playoffs.
No.
Was there the optimism at the end of that season that there is right now? No, there was not.
No.
So, I might be more excited for this offseason than I've been for an offseason.
Yeah. I mean, last year was exciting because you didn't know what was coming, and you knew that big pieces were going to have to fall. You don't have to have big pieces now. You just have to have the proper pieces.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like at the end of the season, trajectory of this team totally is going up. And so now it's like, okay, now you take what the Steelers are going to be able to do in free agency and the draft, and we are not 100% strapped up against the cap like we've been in other years.
Yep.
I actually think our cap number is going to end up very good based on some of the stuff you had posted on the website.
It's pretty good now, and it could be better.
Yeah. Even if it just gets partly better from that.
Yeah.
I was talking with somebody who had read your article and was, saying, hey, what do you think? I said, well, even take with all the possibilities, take restructures or cuts and do half of it. What do you think of that number? And they were like, wow, that's a really good number. I'm like, right. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, there really is.
Knowing the fact I was educating all the fans in the stadium because believe it or not,
not all the fans in the stadium.
No, all the fans around me. Yeah, because everybody was watching the Miami Jets game. Okay, I had 2 other games that I was keeping a close eye on for other reasons. Okay.
Let me guess. Chicago, Minnesota,
Correct.
and Indy and Houston, which I did not see the end of that game because
Oh my gosh, it was
I was
crazy.
driving home from Jeff's. I didn't.
Wow, it was
Yeah.
insane. And the fact that Houston came back in then and won that game, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm telling everybody's talking about it, and I'm like, hey, the Steelers are going to pick. At that time, I knew it was 17 or 18. I said the Steelers are going to have the 17th or 18th.
Yeah, you
pick.
didn't know until the result
Right.
Sunday night.
Right. I said Steelers are going to get the 17th or 18th pick in the draft and the 32nd. They're like, oh, the first pick of the second round. I was like, technically, yes. I said, but the only thing they're not gaining from that is the 5th-year option. I said, technically, it's basically what normally would be the last pick of the first
It's Lamar
round.
Jackson. Lamar Jackson was 32nd.
Right. I'm like,
so
the Steelers are getting 17 or 18, and then 32, and then, another one in there before 50. I said, the Steelers are going to have 3 draft picks in the top 50.
Yeah. And I have to answer some questions about that on my Stat Geek Thursday, which, hold on, before I roll into that, Claude has 12-5. I was trying to see if there was another one in there at all. I'm not seeing another score, so that's it. And he did correct it later that it wasn't what was there.
A record. You said score. You're so used to saying score. That
wasn't it was record. Sorry. But yeah. I'm going to be answering that some stuff with that on my Steelers Stat Geek Thursday morning, which says, make sure you're listening to all our shows. I don't know what the Know Your Enemy people are doing tomorrow night. I don't know if the name change, because, in the offseason, it's usually the curtain call. I don't know exactly when they're transitioning, what their plan is. All I know is that it's going to be good to listen to them. But our podcasts are almost all the same. You're not going to get, obviously, all the last minute thoughts. That one's going to go away on the audio side. The press conference recaps, because there's not going to be press conference, and the post game show is going to be replaced. I'm pretty sure in the off season, the We Run the North, it might even have a name change. We don't know. They're probably going to move back to YouTube for the off season. For those of you that have been listening to that in audio or been missing that on the YouTube side, YouTube, Facebook side, and we'll probably be bringing back the Q&A at some point. I don't know exactly when or what. I know Brian Anthony Davis is under the weather, so hopefully he can get healthy and then we can make some of these decisions. But we're still going to have the content, both here and at the website. Lots of great discussions on the articles the last couple of days. Great comments and everything. So if you're just here to listen to the podcast and you're not on the website, you're missing out on an awful lot there. So make sure you stick with us there. Rich, this is our last time of the 2022 season talking about a game. This is why we went over so long. We will get back to a normal length of show for the off season. But why don't you close us out with your closing thoughts tonight?
I just wanted to thank everybody for, the support for both here on our podcast and the other ones through BTSC for the season. It is much appreciated. We really can't do this without without the folks that appreciate the work that we do. Also over on the website as well. I had a lot of fun writing Knee Jerk.
You said we can't do it without them.
Over on the written stuff as well over on the website. I had a lot of fun writing Knee Jerk reactions for the games. I will give credit where credit is due. Kyle did the one for me on Sunday since I was in the stadium. If you didn't read that, go read it.
96% of it. I think I did the other 4.
No,
I think I only did 2 things in there.
I put 1 bullet point in from the stadium. That was it. So he was all over it. He did a really nice job. I appreciate him. I'm going to miss sitting on my couch on Saturday or on Sunday afternoons, writing that article. But you know what? It's the off season. There's still plenty of stuff to do. I'm already just feeling really good and already have certain parts of me excited for next season. Been a little while since I feel like I've really had that right away. So that's a nice feeling to have. So, 2023 season's not here yet, but the 2023 offseason is upon us, and there's going to be plenty to happen for the Steelers during that time. And in terms of trying to figure out what that's going to be, I can't wait.